today. Thank you, Esther. So I'm Joanne Roberts, and I'm the consultant for this initiative. For those who are popping in, I know we have different people come in on various committees and are able to make it some days and not others. So I'm just grateful that you are all here. And I would like to do introductions. So Esther, you want to do an intro?
Sure. I am joining this meeting for the first time as the new project coordinator for the Early Care and Education Initiative at Vital Communities. So I'm rapidly getting up to speed and excited to be here and meet all of you.
Very glad you're here. Charlotte?
Hi, I'm Charlotte. I am a parent, a concerned parent, I guess. I used to work at King Arthur, but left about 9 months ago. So now I'm just a community, what's the right word? Community participant. There you go.
An important community advocate, yeah.
Sarah?
I'm Sarah Kobolensky, and it's questionable whether I spend more time being a grandparent, and some of you already saw little Miss Evie on the screen this morning, or working in support of the Couch Family Foundation here in the Upper Valley region, particularly around young children and their families and this ECE initiative.
Great. Lisa?
Hi, I'm Lisa Bazogan, and I'm at the Upper Valley Family Resource Center at Waypoint.
Wonderful. Hello, Michael.
Morning, everybody. Michael Bennett. I'm a program officer with the Couch Family Foundation.
Is it Dealey or Deli?
It's Deli.
Deli. Good morning. Hi.
Good morning. I'm Deli Champagne, and I am with Save the Children Action Network.
Great. I'm looking forward to your update. I've been reading the newspapers anxiously, so I'm hoping to hear from you. Brooke?
Good morning, everybody. Brooke Freeland, also from the Couch Family Foundation, rounding out the crew. And Esther, it's nice to meet you. We haven't connected yet, but Sarah Kobolensky and I help co-facilitate this advocacy work group. So we'll also cross paths on this Vital Communities Steering Committee. But looking forward to the conversation today.
Okay. Erica?
Hi, my name's Erica. I'm a faculty member at the Geisel School of Medicine at Dartmouth, and I have a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old. And I guess I got involved in childcare advocacy last year. My colleagues and I wrote a letter to Dartmouth that was signed by over 300 people, asking them to invest in childcare, either expand childcare options or develop a subsidy program. They have yet to do anything other than form a council where it's called the Council on Work-Life Issues, and they have childcare under its purview in addition to partner employment and housing. So yeah, I come to these meetings when I can, and I look forward to today's meeting.
Erica, I can't remember, were you the person who had a little one starting kindergarten?
Yeah, she started in Mount Leb. Mrs.
Yes.
Smith is her teacher.
Enjoying it so far?
Yeah, she was pretty shy the first couple of days, but now she's seemed to adjust really well and is, the normal chatty self at pickup and telling me on better days. So that's
good.
fun.
I love to hear that. That's great. Hello, Tracy.
Hi, everybody. Tracy Hutchins. I'm with the Upper Valley Business Alliance. We're the regional chamber of commerce for the area. And Joanne invited me to join this group. I did sit in on one of the initial advocacy meetings when this group was first formed, and very interested, as so many of our members are having childcare issues with their workers. So excited to be here.
Thanks, Tracy. Hi, Sunny.
Sorry to be late. I was in a classroom covering for teachers that we don't have. So I made it just in time. So I'm Sunny McFeetris, and I am part of Dartmouth College. I'm the director of the Childcare Center. And, you know, this is really important to me, both as a representative of an employer and also as a practitioner, you know, who is, you know, wanting to do the best for the staff that I have and be able to attract, you know, more staff.
Glad you're here. Good morning, Ruth. We're just doing some introductions.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Ruth Brisson. I'm the Executive Director at Woodstock Christian Childcare in Woodstock, Vermont. I'm participating in this group and the recruitment and retention group as much as I can while I'm also trying to run my program and fill in for teachers on a regular basis. So I'm happy to be here and looking forward to hearing the discussion.
Terrific. What I'd like to do first is note that there was a request in the chat. If people could put their names and their connections into the chat, that would be fantastic. And as you do that, I'll just kind of hit the close the window button so we can still see each other. And what I'd like to do first is just want to pull up the agenda very quickly. There we go. So what we would like to do this morning is there's quite a bit to accomplish, but I definitely think it's doable. And what we're going to talk about is Rebecca can't be here today, but she said she'd be at the meeting on the 23rd to get an update from New Hampshire. Sarah said she can give us an update from Vermont. Delia, I'm hoping to hear from you. I really appreciated what you shared at the previous meeting in regard to what SCAN is working on. There was a Concord Monitor article, so if you haven't had a chance to click on that, you might want to read it and then begin to think about potential outreach opportunities. We're going to have a couple of other follow-up things, and the biggest part of the meeting is beginning to talk about the North Star. So the main things that this group wants to focus on are goals, and we will talk about that at the very end. So I would like to go back to there. And Sarah, would you give us an update on what you've been hearing from Vermont?
Sure, just a couple of sentences. This is the next 2 to 3 weeks are the time that both the Vermont Early Childhood Advocacy Alliance and Let's Grow Kids will be rolling out information across the state. The Vermont Early Childhood Advocacy Alliance is the group that Matt Levin, who has met with us several times, leads, and their planning meeting to set their agenda and identify their lead organizations for advocacy will be accomplished before the end of the month. Let's Grow Kids Action Network has now released a list of the candidates that they are supporting in this new election cycle based on their support for early care and education. And they will also be meeting before the end of the month to be working on their on their language for their approach to the legislature as they mount the big ask that they have been building up to for several years now. So that it's really more about timetable than anything else. With things happening now quite imminently, and Brooke has just put in the chat the link to the election updates from Let's Grow Kids. The information was just released. So that's it.
That's exciting. That's great. Kelly, do you want to give us an update about the work of SCAN and where you are in regard to last time you talked to us about certain candidates and getting a sense of who would support this kind of work?
Yes, so similar to what Sarah was just saying, SCAN has endorsed 7 New Hampshire state candidates. I think I might have mentioned we did a questionnaire or survey to all the candidates and we selected 7. So I will add those in the chat. I'm new to the electoral work, so we are running what we call an independent expenditure. So I'm actually not allowed to speak to the candidates, but I can work on behalf of them. So we have a campaign of texting, phone banking, and canvassing that will be happening beginning in October to try to help get our 2 main or primary candidates elected. 4 of them we have just endorsed and said they really don't need our help. 3 need our help, 2 need our help desperately. So most of my work is going to be with the top 2, and you'll see that in our endorsement. We have been working with New Futures, and Michael's been attending these meetings every other Wednesday. We are working toward an omnibus bill. We actually came up with a 10-year plan using a consultant, and the first 1 to 2 years ideas will hopefully be reflected in this omnibus bill. So as a result of that, we've put together a small group to put an advocacy plan in place for the upcoming session. As you know, in New Hampshire, we go January to June. So we need a lot, lots of folks to be prepared to testify for us or write letters to the editor. So 4 of us are meeting on Monday to start working on that plan. One of the parts of the plan that I would love to have some help with is the storybook that we're going to put together. We realized last session we highlighted directors a lot in our testimony, and we really want to hear from families and teachers this time around. So we did put out a questionnaire to providers to share with families, and we've started receiving some of those back. And when we're doing tabling events, we're sharing the questionnaires with families. So we want to have probably, 20 people prepared and ready to go with a story that we can use throughout the session. And maybe 13 or 14 of those would be in the storybook. The idea of the storybook would be to hand it out to all 424 legislators and email it to them as well. So I had hooked up with Amy because I know that you guys have been collecting stories, and she mentioned that when the group gets together again, that I could tag along at that meeting. So I don't want to recreate the wheel. I know that we already have some stories from the Upper Valley. So if you have access to those stories and are willing to share, we're really trying to use the collective impact model and share each other's resources, with families' approval. We really want to highlight, and elevate their voices. So if you have any, hook me up with families. I'm happy to start that process. We are going to be sponsoring a movie event on the 28th of September in Concord. We decided to do it just in person, not hybrid. We are going to videotape it though, for those where it's too long of a drive. So we will have a copy available of the panel for you if you can't make it. But I would highly encourage you to attend in person. We really want a robust conversation. We can fit 109 in the theater. We currently have about 80, so we need about 30 more. We will hear from the director who directed the film Starting at Zero, Reimagining Education in America. For those of you that don't know, Alabama was one of the first states in the nation to offer parity in pay for early childhood educators. They're receiving the same pay as public school teachers, and this has really increased the overall industry. So we have the woman from Alabama who was in charge of getting that program up and running. Her name is Gina Ross. She is coming. The Films Foundation is paying for the director and Gina to stay at the Hotel Concord in Concord, paying for their flights. So they're really putting a big investment into coming to New Hampshire. Gina Ross is going to meet the day before the film screening with Senator Becky Whitley. We're thinking Senator Whitley will be the person who introduces or is the prime sponsor for our omnibus bill this upcoming session. So the two of them are going to have a pre-meeting before the movie. It is going to be moderated by Laura Canoy. Laura and I worked on the questions. We're going to go deep and we're going to find out how do we get this done. You know, I think Michael can share this with me. When we met with the group this summer, we can identify what needs to happen. You know, we are all in agreement with what needs to happen. The question is, how does it need to happen? So we're looking to other states to see how they got it done. So love to have you attend. We have people that we're planting in the audience that we're going to ask questions to as well. If you have something you want us to bring up, we're happy to do that too. So I talked a lot. I'm so sorry, but so that's it from New Hampshire.
Oh, it's all great. No, that's wonderful. Thank you. One of the thoughts I had is connecting you with Sean Mulholland, because one of the people who works for the city was part of the symposium. And I thought she did a great job of expressing the challenges that she faced when she had a little one with her family. And I also have access to the script for both of those symposiums, so I can go back through and maybe with Esther create a list of people who were part of that. Are you familiar with the symposiums? So they were fantastic. They were, they're about 90 minutes each, and they are examples of stories and advocacy for this initiative, which helped kick off kind of the main ideas of what this group would focus on. And so I will also send you the links to those so that you can see them. You can listen to them in your car or you can watch them. But I thought that they were really well done, very thoughtful. And so we will send those out to this whole group in case you haven't had a chance to watch them or listen to them. So I will get
And Joanne, do you have contacts for the families that participated that we could reach out to?
Certainly, I'm sure we could find that out between this group, because these are the folks that made those symposiums happen. So I'm sure that we can definitely figure that out.
That would be great. That's awesome. I didn't know about that. Thank you.
Yeah, I think Amy Brooks, if I remember correctly, and Sean Mohammed were kind of the key point people in connecting with some of the family stories that were elevated during the symposium.
Great. Yeah, I did reach out to Amy and she said, don't reinvent the wheel. We have stories, we're happy to share. So she said, but I'm not sure when we're meeting again. So she just said, be on the lookout for a meeting invite when we get together again. So that's
you might even be able to lift some of the stories from the symposiums, because I think each person had like a certain amount of time. So they had their script. And that's another way of not having to reinvent the wheel, because they put a lot of thought into what they were sharing in those clips. So it would just be asking, I think, permission to reuse it or have them tape it or something like that. So that would be great. I'm looking forward to what you put together. I love that idea. It has
Joanne,
to be about the children, right?
Can you get that to me before Monday? Is it possible? My meeting is at 10 o'clock.
Yeah, I can get it to you before noon today.
Okay. Thank you. And thank you, Sarah. I saw your email. Thank you. Our chat. Thank you.
Hey, Deli, sorry, can you, I'm just curious, do you see the storybook elevating both parent and provider stories, or just parent stories? I just want to make sure I'm clear on that.
Yeah.
Both.
We thought we'd get maybe 8 parents, we'd get 3 providers and 3 to 4 teachers. That was kind of the number that we came up with. But Michael, if you have a different thought, love to.
Well, what's the distinction between providers and teachers in your mind?
So like a childcare director. I use that term provider, which I shouldn't. So a teacher or that's actually in a lot of people's minds a provider. We felt like we really elevated the voices of directors last time, and we really know there's some great content from families and teachers. So we want to. So does that make sense? I guess I'm using my terms poorly. Okay, so
no, that I just wanted to clarify that, and also, you know, in terms of the Alabama initiative, I just want to put a note on this because I think it's an important distinction to make. The Alabama program is pay parity for early educators working in specific pre-K settings and educators that have certain credentials that are on par with public school educators, right? So it's not a we should not imply that it's a blanket. There's pay parity for early education educators and public school teachers, because that is not what's happening in Alabama. So I just wanted that to be clear as well.
Well, we want to learn what the formula is, and we want to learn how it got done and see if we can transfer some of those methods to New Hampshire. So it's not going to be a copy to copy.
Yeah, I get that. But I mean, there's still a long way to go, particularly for 0 to 3 and care for those children. And also, you know, many cities like Boston has had pay parity within their universal pre-K program for many years, as have some other large urban areas. So I think what's unique about Alabama is it's a statewide initiative, which is somewhat different than what we're seeing in other places. So.
One of the things, we brought the film to New Hampshire a couple of years ago, and one of the things that came out of our panel discussion after was the director said to us, these initiatives seem to go really well in states where the governor buys into this work and buys into this issue. So she said, we have got to get Governor Sununu on board to prioritize this work, which I think we're doing, which I think we're making some progress. So if anything, we're hoping that this will sway the governor to take a deeper dive into this. So it's really just a conversation starter. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Michael. That's a good point.
Deli, quick question, sorry, about the advocacy group you referenced, that you said there's 4 of you coming together. What are the 4 advocacy organizations, and then what are, in that kind of your first this legislative session, what are those 2 priorities in that kind of omnibus bill that you talked about?
So the omnibus bill is still being worked on, so I will not share information about that yet. And the 4 groups that are getting together are SCAN, New Futures, Moms Rising, and New Hampshire NAEYC. So if anyone wants to be a part of that meeting, we are meeting in person in Concord. We'd love to have you. 10 o'clock on Monday at Teetotaler on Main Street.
And do you have an outside facilitator kind of helping with that, bring that conversation together?
We do, you mean for the
for the 4 of you, for the advocacy organizations? I just know sometimes it's hard to, even though you all have, in my experience, advocacy organization all kind of have a similar North Star. Ways of going about it are sometimes different, so finding common ground and collaboration, it is sometimes challenging. So sometimes the benefit of having kind of a neutral outside facilitator come in and help move those conversations. So I was just curious if that's the process you all are going through, or it's a little more.
Well, not yet, Brooke. We'll see if we need that, but we'll see how we work together. And if we feel like we need to pull that in, we certainly can. But as of right now, I don't feel like we need that, but we might.
Yeah, and I'll just add another little piece of information related to this. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Deli, but this sort of subgroup of 4 organizations are really thinking about sort of what a grassroots sort of initiative could look like, and it's part of a larger statewide, sort of an emerging statewide campaign, advocacy campaign. So it's a piece of a larger body of work that is still new and still emerging.
Yeah,
Is
it
that,
is
is that how
definitely-
you would describe it, Deli?
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's definitely more grassroots.
Yeah.
You know, we're trying to get away from the orange badges, you know, testifying. We really want to hear from, you know, people that have lived experience. So yeah, we're really putting together a grassroots campaign. Yep.
And for the sake of Esther and others who may not be quite as familiar with New Hampshire, Deli, that orange badge metaphor is important. Could you just give a quick sentence about it?
The orange badges are folks that are paid lobbyists that can testify and work on behalf of organizations. So like I wear an orange badge. And honestly, what I've heard from many lawmakers is they really would rather not hear from me. They would rather hear from folks with lived experience. So we're trying to move away from that. My company actually did a pretty big study about that. And to no one's surprise, we learned that you move the needle a lot quicker with folks with lived experience, you know, boots on the ground, than you do with a bunch of orange badges. So we're really trying to move in that direction.
In one of the meetings we had, we talked about how to help smaller centers and in-home setting professionals. And so there was a conversation about potentially finding a contractor who could do estimated costs in both Vermont and New Hampshire to be able to give people just that, you know, if you're going to add a bathroom, how much is that actually going to cost, for example, or fencing or playground equipment. I did follow up with Vermont Works for Women, haven't heard back from them. If this group has other ideas or connections that you think I should follow up on to get that up and going, please let me know, and I will definitely do that. We were trying to find someone who you know, is representative of underrepresented populations. So if there's a connection with that in this group, please let me know. I think that would be a great thing for us to get up and running and start moving on that sooner rather than later. I do have something to share, but I'm not quite sure if it will work. And so I'll do that another time. It's not downloaded yet. So what I would like to have us begin to talk about, and I'm going to share the agenda, is what we use as a term as the North Star, so the main goals. And where I began the conversation was with the steering committee, and then what I'm in the midst of doing is drafting the charter for this initiative and alignment of the work efforts so that we have both strategy and synergy. And this is just an overview of the collective impact model, which is great. Deli just talked about using this model as well. This is from the original conversations of the initiative. And then last June, Andrea worked with this group to talk about the main goals. So the focus was create an exchange of successful policies that advance the goal of the initiative in each state and engage Upper Valley businesses in bi-state advocacy. So there were these key goals from advocacy and then the work that was done. And I'm going to pull down because I took each of these and I just tossed out ideas to just kind of springboard the conversation. What I've been hearing by attending the different meetings is that we really need to create what I call a pitch and a plan, which seems the direction that we're heading, which is great. So what are the key issues facing Vermont and New Hampshire? Early childcare and education, talking about quality, availability, affordability, and wages. And what I'd like to do over the next few weeks is an analysis of the data. There's a lot of data out there. Try to pull the key points together and bring it back, seeking further input. And then October, kind of have a rough draft to review with this committee, and then bringing it forward to the steering committee. And along the lines of the storybook idea, disseminating it in November and December so that it's out there before January comes in. And then what I did was I pulled each of the goals from above. So I'm going to try to, it's hard to do this and not see faces, but we'll look at the first one and then I'll stop share and we'll come back. So educate local decision makers on the use of ARPA and local infrastructure in New Hampshire and Vermont. I'm finding that a lot of the conversations of each of this work groups and committees are being repetitive. So I want to try to put the goals there's not a correct, it's not right or wrong, but in the work group that it's really the focus of it. And then the co-chairs bring it back to the steering committee. So I noticed that Kim has done a lot of this work and is already working with the workforce recruitment and retention. So I was thinking that this goal might better live with that group, but I wondered if there was another part of it. And that's the reason why this group, this goal was under advocacy. Can someone give me a little history on that? Where do you think that work should be done? Sean talks a bit about ARPA funding as well in the facilities group with the childcare center and things like that.
So Joanne, the piece with the ARPA group is that funding is so decentralized. I mean, each individual community has some money, each county has some money. In New Hampshire and Vermont, the county money rolled into the communities. And the and so what had actually happened was that Tammy Hazlitt, who is based in Thetford, was working with her town around this. And so we had gotten the information to her about what was possible. And I know she had carried that forward, but I don't know what happened. So then, again, it's who's having the relationships with particular governmental entities around this. And then there's also a whole initiative about the remaining unspent funds in New Hampshire, and others beyond this group are working on that. And that's Michael might be able to give the best quick update on who's working on that, but it does involve or Delhi, others at that state level for the unspent ARPA funds. But the Upper Valley immediate ones really had been town by town, and Lebanon and Thetford is the two specific communities where there was a conversation.
Thank you. I think my question is, I'm hearing different groups talk about it, and I don't know if it should live with advocacy at this point, or if it's better with the workforce group and the facilities group, because it tends to link directly with what they're doing. I wasn't sure if this advocacy group is actually advocating for the use of those funds. Sean has said that there's not a lot of funds even left.
My opinion would be probably facilities.
Is there a kind of agreement or thumbs up for that? I'm just trying to get these where they need to go.
I would say that I would agree with that. I don't think it really lives well with recruitment and retention, because that is so targeted on one specific kind of activity or need. It's a much bigger issue, so it's not something that I think falls within that R&R group. I think if it's going to live anywhere other than advocacy, it would need to live probably with facilities. If you're looking at how do you get dollars for larger projects, which is something I'm struggling with right now. I have an opportunity to expand, but that would require building an addition, and there's not funding to do it. So, or at least we're having trouble accessing that. So I would say that it's probably a bigger issue, and it really doesn't seem to fit well with the R&R group.
So why don't I bring that back to the facilities group next time we meet, and just let them know about this conversation and hear what actions they want to take on it. And then Sean and Jen can always go to the steering committee and say, here's the work that we're talking about in regard to these funds. So it's not really getting lost. I'm just trying to have it. I think we have almost too many goals for each of the groups. There's a lot to tackle. So I'm trying to trim them down to be what are the most powerful, but where can we get the most leverage? Where can we take the most action for each of the groups? Everything I'm reading, hearing, and seeing is that the next 4 months are going to be crucial to this initiative. It's all kind of coming together from both sides. So that's why I was thinking about that one. And the reason I want to have this conversation is so my next steps will be after this to go back and redraft the goals and then bring them back to you. And Brooke mentioned taking a look at the article that's part of this agenda. So I want to get to that too today. The next one that was listed for this group is creating a centralized online communication platform for ECE advocacy opportunities and information. And I'm pretty sure, Esther, that's something that you'll begin to work on. My understanding of that is making the web from Vital Communities, ECE, kind of the central resource for a lot of information. Am I correct that that's the goal that links to that work? Having not been here, I'm not quite sure.
I have heard mention of that, but don't yet have any details. But I think you're right.
And Andrew did set up, there is a listserv that's specific to the ECE. It's a little kind of DOS mode wonky, but so that exists. I don't know how many have signed up to receive those emails. Not a whole lot goes out on it, but we all have if you sign up, anyone can post on it. What I struggle with, it's a good example of the article that was in the Concord Monitor. That's what I'd love for people to do is kind of tweet out the article and tag Sununu for tweet out the report from the New Hampshire Center for the Fiscal Policy Institute, just to get some traction there and create some awareness, writing a letter to the editor, to the Concord Monitor, highlighting the findings kind of around childcare, link it back to your own personal story. That's hard to put on that ECE listserv, kind of those call to actions, but it can come out of this work group. But then how do each one of you then kind of share that with your network? And that's I kind of see those as some of the advocacy opportunities, and there's not a really cohesive way unless we do it through email, through kind of the advocacy work group listserv of getting those messages out, those kind of call to actions.
That's helpful. Does this initiative have its own Twitter account, or is it connected to Vital Communities? And do we need to be very cautious what we put out? Because I'm learning this last few weeks that Vital Communities can get information out, but can't necessarily specifically advocate. I believe I said correctly. So
yeah. And I think you can do it as an individual, so not in connection with your organization, unless SCAN wants to put it out to their members. But we can't directly advocate for a piece of legislation, we being Vital Communities, or even your kind of nonprofit entity or specific candidate, but you can shout from the rooftops the importance of investing in early childhood education and kind of amplify research, data, messages that have already been out there, so that if we are amplifying it, we should do it on behalf of ourselves and not behalf of Vital Communities.
So
Yeah,
Sarah mentioned.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Go ahead, Michael. Go ahead, Michael.
I was just going to say what Sarah said. I think, one of the things that we've talked about over the past couple months is the need for a communication strategy for this initiative. And it seems like that should really live with the steering committee. And there needs to be some sort of coherent way of getting messages out that sort of touch upon the work of all the work groups, and I think sort of centralizing that in some way that we can get that unified message out, and then sort of support that with any individual advocacy we want to do as individuals, right? So
yeah,
there's a real need there.
My sense is there's lots of circling around, which isn't a bad thing. But what I'm trying to do is have each work group function on its 2 or 3 goals, focus on those. And then the co-chairs bring that to the steering committee. So the steering committee needs to be more defined on what the steering committee actually does within this initiative. And so I think it makes a lot of sense for the advocacy group to bring forward ideas about what should be part of the communication strategy. And Esther and I can work on putting that together and then bringing it to the steering committee for, review and approval as far as how the groups are going to communicate with each other and then how this initiative is going to communicate out. And I do see that is something that we could definitely work on over the next couple of months and get into place for sure. So we'll keep that in here and I will tweak it. The next one that was part of this list, as I scroll down, along the same lines, the strategic plan for ECE provider tax exemption legislation. This is falling a lot under facilities as well, and actually comes up at their meetings. So I'm wondering, because Sean is doing a lot of this work, instead of having it an advocacy, but instead have it over in facilities. Does that make sense for this group? And then he reports out with Jen to the steering committee what's being done in regard to the tax property legislation. The other thing I want to do, Esther, is I want to make sure that we are sharing the minutes from each of the committees with the other groups, because it's kind of falling here and falling there. But if people have a chance to read the minutes, they'll say, oh, facilities just spent a lot of time talking about this with Sean. He reviewed the legislation that he was working on, who he's connecting with, and things like that. So I'm wondering if that's a goal that you would want to have here at this committee, or did you want to focus on other things and have that be part of facilities, the tax? And Sunny, you might have information on that one too. I remember talking about the tax legislation with different people in this group. Do you have a feeling of where that should live?
I feel like living with facilities is probably the best place, but knowing that facilities may then reach out to advocacy if it becomes, the time that they need that kind of support. My biggest reason for having it live with facilities is Sean's drive on this issue, and he's really the one taking it on. So, and that's where he is putting the bulk of his effort. So I think that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. I think kind of the facility work group drives it and we amplify it. So part of it was connecting the dots, connecting the dot between Sean and Rebecca at New Futures, and just letting New Futures and SCAN know that this is legislation that we're working on supporting, and can that be tied into their sort of omnibus bill or something that they can get the early childhood community to rally behind. And then, does Sean need letters of support? So how can we go out to our networks and get letters of support to move this bill forward once it becomes a working piece of legislation?
Okay. We just have a couple more and then we'll hop on to the article, make sure that we have time for that. This one I think should live here. Supporting advocacy skills and opportunities in the community. I thought for each of these meetings, whenever possible, Rebecca wasn't able to make it today, but she did say that she'd be able to make one meeting a month. For advocacy, Drake let me know that she couldn't be here, but hopefully each meeting, one or the other will be giving an update. I don't know a lot about the Gopher Fund, but it was listed up above, so that's something that I need to learn more about. Esther is going to begin to look into businesses to provide discounts, potentially mental health support. And then we're working on finding the estimators. That kind of were a few things that were off the top of my head in regard to the advocacy part. I was wondering from you, having been here and feeling this energy that's coming through at different state levels, is there something specific that this group wanted to focus on in the next couple of months? Do you see areas where you can step forward and advocate? I mean, one is what Deli was talking about, having people be part of the storybook that you're bringing forward, participating on the 28th, was it, in Concord? What's the date? 25th?
That's the movie, the 28th.
Okay,
Our
yeah.
first grassroots advocacy meeting is Monday.
And so participating in that at 10 o'clock on Monday. I think the question is, in what ways will this group know where and when to advocate? So what are the streams that are feeding into this group to go, hey, we need you to get behind this? Kind of paddling a bit around, but not quite sure from my perspective, the networking there to get on top of things and to push things forward. Like, what is the right timing to write letters to the editor? I know that, I want to say, Sunny, you filled us in on, like, some were actually in the newspaper, some were not, that got sent, the letters to the editor.
I think letters to the editor were published, but op-eds were not. And Sarah, I think you worked on an op-ed that perhaps did not get published.
So if they're not getting
A
published,
lot of us worked on that one.
Yeah.
how do we get it out?
So that example was, it was kind of right after the symposiums, and it was just a way to create deeper awareness about the work, about this work group within Vital Communities. Yeah, it didn't get picked up, but it's maybe sometimes it's the right person making the ask, and I'm not sure if we had that. So having those connections with various media outlets, it doesn't get picked up in the Valley News, then maybe we go to New Hampshire Public Radio. So kind of trying different avenues. So then we just sent it out as a newsletter within Vital Communities, the Vital Communities listserv, which is, my guess, pretty vast as well. So might even
Would it
had
be
more
helpful
readers.
if I reached out to one of the folks at the Valley News who does a lot of writing about schools? I get emailed quite a bit. You know, what's happening, there's two reporters. Nora does quite a bit locally, and the editor isn't the Valley News is also now owned by Concord Monitor or something, correct? So that's true. So if we can get a hold of one of those folks with all the stuff that's happening, the timing of it might be of interest to them at this point, because there's so much going on. Do other people have connections with newspapers? Or so Deli, you have Laura Canoy heading your direction. Tracy, you might be able to help with Valley News.
You guys subscribe to Daybreak?
Yes.
I just
Yeah.
think like that, it's not really an outlet to publish, but it's certainly a way to then help spread anything that does get published in Valley News or Concord Monitor.
That's a great one. Yeah, I read that every morning, so I should
Me too.
have thought of that one, Erica. Yeah. So Daybreak, and they might post the op-ed that was written if it wants.
I was thinking that, yeah, I don't know how long ago or if it would still be relevant, but you could certainly contact the reporter, I forget his name, and ask him.
That's a great one. A lot of people read that. And then Tracy also wrote New Hampshire Business Review, might be another place to get information out. That's great. Even if we started it that way, it it might get picked up. Do you know, so Laura Canoy, she's NPR, right? She didn't leave NPR, she's still part of NPR? She's not. Did she retire or resign?
Nope, she's just working independently for herself now.
Okay.
Can I just chime in here for a second? The one thing that I am concerned about is how New Hampshire works in silos so well. And I want us to have a coordinated effort, because I feel like we have some groups that are doing such great work, but we're not aligning our work or coordinating our work. So I want to make sure that we are able to do that with this initiative. You know, that we're not all sending LTEs to the same newspaper on the same day, or, you know, there's got to be some type of a coordination. So I get nervous when we have different silos doing different things. So can we talk about that for a little bit?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And fully, and that's really why we love that you're at these meetings, Ellie, and want, you know, Rebecca from New Futures to be at these meetings, and also Let's Grow Kids, because you guys are the expert advocates, and you kind of have a good lens on what's happening across the state, New Hampshire and Vermont, and we just want to help you amplify the work that you're doing. And so kind of going back to the beginning, we don't want to reinvent the wheel, but how can we kind of bring what's happening at the state level in both states back to the Upper Valley and make sure that we're creating some ripple effect and some impact here, and vice versa. Like, as we see things bubble up in the Upper Valley community, how do we get that message back to you all so you can amplify it statewide, or learn from kind of what we can, you know, pilot here locally, and that could kind of create some learning or some knowledge that could be shared across the states.
Does someone from this group want to join us on Monday remotely? You know, we could certainly bring the computer and have you join that way. If
I
you
was
think
just
that
thinking
makes
that
sense.
actually. I will check my schedule. A remote might be a possibility for me. And are there others that might be able to do that as well?
I'll check my schedule. I'll go in person if I can.
Ooh, that would be great too.
Yeah.
Does somebody want to let me know over the weekend what's decided? And if we need a link, I'll send out a link. Joanne's looking at us.
Unfortunately, I'm sorry, I had to flip to superintendent hat for a minute. Unfortunately, I have a meeting at 10 o'clock on Monday, but can you send me the links? Like, so if I can get into those meetings, I would love to just hear what people are saying. That's, you know, what Brooke described is exactly what I was hoping that we would be kind of talking about today, is how best to use this group with so many people with the knowledge and the, you know, interest in pushing it forward.
Lisa, do you want the link also, or do you want to try to make it in person?
I'll try to go in person.
Okay, so it's called the Teetotaler.
Yeah.
On Main Street in Concord, 10 o'clock. Great. Okay. And I will create a link and send it to you, Joanne.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. I think that will be so helpful to have some of you participating in that.
Thanks, Lisa.
Great. So what I will do is, based on the conversation today, I will kind of draft some goals. I'm continuing. I haven't met with all of the work groups yet, so I'm hoping to finalize the work group goals by October, bring those to the steering committee. I'm excited about this idea Deli is talking about, because I'm hearing that a lot too, that there are just lots of groups who are working on this. So how can we get that synergy and focus? For sure, that's very exciting. And what I would like to do is, Brooke, how would you like to discuss the article? Does everybody have a link? If the link's in the actual agenda, have people had a chance to look at it? Do you want me to pull up the survey data at the end?
I was just saying, it's a good example of a kind of advocacy opportunity to flex those advocacy muscles. And again, Delhi, to your point of like, let's not all, happy to take direction from what the statewide advocates are doing. If you're doing anything to kind of amplify the data that came out of the New Hampshire Fiscal Policy Institute, we can piggyback on that. But if not, happy to kind of try to amplify it in the Upper Valley to gain some traction and additional awareness. These are just like when these things kind of come across your screen, you can tweet it on, if you have Twitter, you can tweet it out, you can repost it, you can put it on Facebook, and just, with a tag like living this data, like there's a lack of supply of childcare in the Upper Valley. Like it's kind of tying the story to the chart and the data. And so how can we amplify that?
And Tracy, one of the things that I was thinking about with your work is once we kind of have like the pitch and the plan that I think is representative, maybe coming to one of the Alliance meetings and talking about the work of this initiative, because we know it's greatly impacting Upper Valley businesses, not having childcare, and just seeing from the networks that you have, businesses that might become involved with that to advocate for it. Businesses are also another piece of the storyline. So Delhi, in the symposiums, there are multiple people representing businesses that are talking about how that's impacting them as well. So do you think that there's an avenue, Tracy, that might work in that regard for advocacy?
Yeah, I was just emailing you something about that, Joanne, just say that UVBA can, as a nonprofit, because we are a C6, advocate for issues, and we do on a regular basis. We do not, as sort of our own policy, endorse candidates, but we do issues. Childcare is also something that most of the Chamber of Commerce in the state are looking at. And so if you send me information, I can share that with other chambers as well and get that out there. And I was also going to mention that I'm on a call every 2 weeks with other chambers of commerce and Taylor Caswell, the Commissioner of Business and Economic Affairs. And this has come up, and the Gopher Funds have come up. The Gopher Funds right now have all been spoken for the different relief funds that the state did. However, not all the money was used in all of those funds. So there's been some discussion amongst the Gopher committee about reallocating funds, but nothing has been decided yet. I think those discussions are just starting to happen. So now may be a good time to get in there. I don't know if it would be a lot of money, because I think there's also some other priorities that the state is looking at. Yes, childcare is one of our policy priorities. Absolutely.
And that's great to hear. And do you know if it's kind of part of the statewide chamber's policy priorities as well?
I'll have to go back and check. Our statewide chamber is the Business Industry Association. Mike Skelton is the new president, and obviously UVBA is a member, and I sit on a board with Mike, so I can check on that. But I do think it is. I just can't remember if it's one of their official policy briefs, but I know Mike has a 3-year-old, so it's near and dear to his heart.
That's good. That always helps. Yeah, to get it as an official policy brief would be great, because then to have someone from the New Hampshire BIA kind of at the ledge, testifying in support of childcare policy bills would be really powerful. And I know Sean Mohammed, who's the city manager of Lebanon, has worked with the municipal there's so many
And there's
wonderful
the whole
acronyms
resource, yes.
in New Hampshire, but getting, supporting childcare kind of part of their economic development policy priorities as well.
Yeah, I think the BIA has identified childcare as a priority, but you know, what they're going to do with that and how they're going to use that and advocate is unclear at this point. So I think understanding that and sort of leveraging whatever influence we could have on moving them to be more vocal, I think would be extremely helpful. In terms of the Gopher Funds, it's my understanding that the state has about $1 billion in targeted funds that's remaining. So there is a push now among state advocates to kind of put in an ask for childcare. And I've heard everything from 50 million to 100 million, but we don't really know what it's going to be. Now, the Department of Health and Human Services is going to put in an ask to Gopher to support childcare, but advocates are also going to do that as well. And the primary focus of that is really around workforce recruitment and retention. So their advocates want at least $15 million a year to sort of supplement wages so that we don't continue to lose early educators. So it's going to be a big ask. We'll see where it lands. But it seems like that will be happening this fall. And I've heard that the state may make some decisions by the end of the year. Some people say by the end of September, but I don't think that's going to happen. It's probably more like the end of the year. So
when thinking about the pitch and plan, Deli, is the group that you're working with going to put out a statement that reflects all of the survey data that's been going around and being shared, that has percentages and things like that? I just don't want to spend a lot of time doing something if that group has already done that work.
One of the things we talked about at our last meeting was putting together some talking points and sharing that around the state so that we're all, we like to say, singing from the same sheet of music, you know, so that our lawmakers are hearing the same things over and over again from people. So that was something we thought was missing from the last session. So we're not sure if that's something that, you know, Senator Whitley will put together or our group, but we do know we need talking points that we can all share.
Have you seen the 1 or 2 pager from Let's Grow Kids?
No,
That
but I'd
is
love
really
to.
well done. It's
Can
very
someone
well.
send me that? That would be great.
Yes, I picture it in my head. I don't know where I saw it, but I had an aha moment, and that's this is great. You know, that they had the statistics. It was easy to read. It was understandable. I will find it and I will share it with the group. And I just remember seeing it going, like if we could capture what Vermont is happening, because we, you know, by state, and have something similar from New Hampshire, similar messages, have the governors talk to each other from both of these states, heading in a positive direction, learning from what other states have done. I think that would be, I think that's key in kind of pushing this forward. Not to make anyone look bad, but hey, it's happening other places. Why isn't it happening here? Kind of a push. So I will find that. I also found their website to be a fantastic resource. So I will send everybody that link too. I've spent some time on that as well. Any other agenda items or topics people want to bring up today?
I just had one thought, and I don't know if this is going to be useful, but in my research, I use a lot of network analysis, and there have been like studies looking at the networks of, you know, policy groups or stakeholders or advocates. And I don't know, I was just, as we were talking about all of the different players involved and like how to leverage relationships to get things done, or even comparing New Hampshire and Vermont, sort of like childcare advocacy networks to each other might be interesting. The issue is like, you'd have to collect the data. But anyway, it's not like a urgent thing, but it's just something to put in your minds in case something like that would be useful. I'm happy to, do that. I just would need help getting data on like who all the players are, and then some way to survey them about who they work with, or some way to define relationships between them.
That would be fantastic. I can connect you, I'm thinking of with Amy, right? Because Amy has all the New Hampshire and Vermont Upper Valley. Is that the right person? I think it is. So, yeah, fantastic. So I'm just writing that down, Erica. So okay. Great. So, yeah, a lot to do in between our meetings, but I'm hoping that this meeting was helpful in kind of grounding us of where you were, where you want to head, what goals should go with each of the committees and what to focus on. Our next meeting date is Friday, September 23rd, once again from 9:30 to 11. I appreciate everybody taking the time to be here. And I hope to see you soon. Have a great weekend. Take care.